So today we're here with
Tim Leighty.
Tim. Where did you go to high school and what year did you graduate?
Well, Tyler, I went to Lawrenceville High School, home of the Indians. I graduated in 1983.
What sports did you play in high school?
Well, I started out playing junior league football, and I played my freshman year of football, and then I got my bell rung, so I didn't play anymore. I kind of wish I would have, but I played that and basketball. Basketball for 4 years, football just one.
Talk about your high school sports career from freshman to senior.
Well, we back in those days in the '80s, Lawrenceville had the numbers. We had a lot of players that played football, basketball, baseball, track, everything. But as far as myself, I just concentrated after my freshman year on basketball. So I would work all year long in the off season just on fundamentals and things to try to get better.
Talk about your teammates and your coaches.
Well, that's very interesting. I played with a lot of good players, a couple All-Staters, Marty Simmons and Doug Nossack, and we had all-conference guard Ernie Ho and Jeff Gear. The list goes on and on. Our whole team, we were really talented all the way through. So I got a chance to play with some really good players through my career. And my coaches, I played for a coach named Ron Felling, legendary high school coach, won 4 state tournaments, 4 state championships. And our assistant coaches, Jeff Trickett was our first assistant, and he retired after my freshman year. So a guy named George Grubbs was there, and a guy named Rick Hurtis. And they were all on the same page as Coach Felling, and we just had a tremendous a bunch of guys that were after the same thing.
Talk about some of the teams and players that you played against in high school.
Well, back when I played, it was the North Egyptian Conference, and so the old NEC, and Olney, Mount Carmel, Bridgeport, all those, and they were all good fundamental teams, and we just had a lot of good players in that time period. As far as non-conference, I played against some guys like Scott Mintz, played for Herscher High School. Lowell Hamilton played for St. Mel, Providence St. Mel. Those were both in the state tournament. Tim Gull from Salem was a really talented player. Always had to guard him, so he was really tough to play against. Gosh, it's been so long. Some of those guys I forget. I know I'm forgetting some, but the whole conference was full of good players.
What were your favorite gyms in high school?
Well, of course, the old Lawrenceville gym over here that has since burnt down. But Red Hill was always our kind of home away from home back in those days. The sectional was held there almost every year. And so Red Hill was a great place to play. Something about the floor had good bounce to it. You can get up well on that floor.
Add any stories from the high school career you'd like to add?
Well, I don't know. There's so many, Tyler. I'd probably be here all night. I just think that the whole career itself, with all the players, we were just brothers. We were all tight knit kids that hung out together, and our practices were long. But we were good. Our coaches we respected, and I just think the whole 4 years I was in high school, I just loved every minute of actually being on the team.
Describe any awards you received.
Well, we won state tournament twice when I played, 82 and 83, back-to-back state championships, undefeated, 34-0 2 years in a row, 68 in a row, and I think that's still a record, I believe. I don't think it's been broken. I know there's been some other teams that have won state tournaments undefeated, but not back-to-back like that. Undefeated. So I think it's still a state record. I'd have to check just to make sure.
After high school, where did you attend college?
Well, I went 2 years on scholarship to Olney Central College and left there, and I attended SIU in Carbondale.
Who recruited you?
When I went to OCC, it was my head coach was Rick Buzzard. Or no, it was Terry Buzzard, I'm sorry. Terry Buzzard. He was coaching over there then. Come said, I can give you a full scholarship, and I need players, and so I said, I'll be there.
At the college level, talk about your career, including your teammates and coaches.
Well, it was just a 2-year career. I mean, I had I had chances to go other places, but I just, at that time, I was just really immature as an 18-year-old kid, and I had 2 good years. I played actually my freshman year with Ed Grunlow and Tim Brown. They were from St. Anthony. They were playing at OCC, and they were sophomores my freshman year. So those guys just were great. I mean, they welcomed me in as a freshman. I played quite a bit then. There was another kid named Jerome. His last name escapes me, but he was a freshman from Milwaukee, and they'd won the state tournament in Milwaukee, and he was a real good friend. I wish I could remember his last name, but I can't. It escapes me right now. But as far as my 2 years at OCC, it was fun. I learned a lot, and I matured a lot as a player.
Talk about the teams and players that you played against.
Well, it's the GRAC, so we played against VU and Mount Carmel, Parkland College, all those teams that make up that conference. And it's been so long. I'm 55 now, so it's been a while since I've played. Some of those things escape me, but I know it was competitive. I played, started my freshman year, but I came off the bench my sophomore year because for some reason I felt more comfortable that way, and I played better. So, but it was a fun time back then.
Name some of the favorite gyms that you played in college.
In college, well, OCC was always a good place to play. It was your home gym. VU was that was a fairly new facility back then, and it was always a lot of fun. And going to Mount Carmel was crazy. They were really good back then, and so every time you went there, it was a packed house and always a lot of fun.
Adding any stories from college you'd like to add, and any awards that you received?
Not really. I just have a lot of respect for the guys I played with, and we had a lot of fun. Learned a few things as I went along, and we always got knocked out in the junior college tournament, so we never really won much, but it was a lot of fun.
You've been officiating for a while now. At what age did you start officiating?
Well, I was a little older when I started officiating. I was 29, and I didn't start till then. I wish I would have started earlier, but I'm happy with where I'm at now. And it was one of the best things I ever did was start officiating.
How did you start getting into officiating?
Well, a good buddy of mine, Ed Gardner, he kept asking me he'd say, hey, I'd like to get you into officiating. I'd always say, yeah, sure, Ed, I'd love to. Well, he called me up one day and he said, hey, you still want to officiate? And I said, yeah, I sure do. He goes, well, I got a game for you tonight. Come to my office right now. And so I was like, oh my God. So I went to his office. I sent in my money for my license. He gave me a shirt. I had some black slacks and some black shoes. And I went and did a game at Parkview that night, a girls' basketball game with Ed. And it just kind of felt right, And so from then on, I just kind of fell in love with it for some reason, and that was the start of my career.
How many years have you been doing in the industry of officiating?
25. This is my 25th year.
Name some of the officials that have helped you along the way.
Well, Ed Gardner, of course. He was a great guy. Helped me out a lot. Him and Terry Andrews, and of course your dad, Carl Repking. He's been helping me for a lot of years. Great guy. A guy named Dave Jones from Olney, him and George Martin. Those guys, whenever it went to three person in around 99, 2000, those guys took me under their wing and made me a third a lot of times, and so that got me into the varsity situation. So there's a lot of guys that I remember that I'm probably leaving out, but that's the guys that really made more of a personal contact with me more than anybody.
What level have you officiated?
Well, I went, fortunately this year I had a super sectional to boys level, and it was just fantastic.
Who'd you have?
I had Breeze Mater Day and Murfreesboro, and it was overwhelming. You get there and it was just the camaraderie, the coaches, the officials that are there that are just so happy that you made it. That's kind of maybe the first step into going to state tournament. From what I hear, I hope that that it happens for me. I worked hard, and a lot of guys have helped me along the way. So it was really overwhelming to see all the well-wishers, at the game. I was walking this high off the ground, I think. It was just so much fun to be on the floor, and my last night of the year. So it was really, really, really fun.
Where are some of your favorite gyms to officiate?
Well, the old Lawrenceville High School, again, that burnt down. The Capital Classic started there at Red Hill several years ago, and I done a lot of games there. And I always like going to Pinckneyville. Pinckneyville's a great place. It's like old school. They pack the house every night you're there, and they're real basketball fans.
Talk about some of the best players that you officiated.
Well, of course, Myers Leonard. He was a great player. Some of the newer players now, most present players, Connor Heaton of A&M, great player, such a great kid on the court. Just plays, and that's it, plays, and that's all he's concerned about. There's an Appleby, a young man with the last name Appleby. His first name escapes me right now, but he's from Mount Carmel, and he's about 6'8", and he's going to be a senior next year, so he's going to be a load.
Talk about some of the coaches that you officiated.
Well, Pinckneyville, Bobby Wagner, he's one of the best. I have a lot of respect for Cody Rinker. John Nieberge from Altamont, those guys are great coaches. Some of the legendary coaches like Randy Bishop and Ken Crawford I've officiated for, and I think all those guys have one thing in common, is that they get to their players. Their players respond to what they say, and I think that is really important when they go to a huddle and they've got hardly any time left on the clock and they're down one. They listen to their coach. And that's important to me.
Last couple of questions wrapping up officiating. With the shortage of officials, what are your thoughts on getting more officials?
Well, I've thought a lot about this. I see younger guys that are getting out of high school and going to college. I've talked to them about, doing a part-time as a college job. I wish I'd have done it when I was in school. Instead of flipping burgers, go do some games, and you can make really as much money as you want in a week's time. But I think what really needs to be done is guys like myself and other officials, along with the IHSA, start running clinics and camps, maybe one or two a summer. Get teams in there where they can get young officials in there and say, get them on the court. There's a lot of positives involved in officiating, and I think people look at too many of the negatives. And so we're losing officials, and we need to get them back. So something along those lines, I think, would be a great idea.
Since you've been a veteran official for so long, what have you enjoyed most about officiating?
I think the most important to me is the friendships that I've made along the way. Like I mentioned, Carl, your dad. I mean, he's a great friend. Travis Wyatt is one of my main partners. We've worked together since we both started 25 seasons ago. It's the guys that you would have never met other than, being an official. Bill McLean from Mount Carmel, I probably would have never known him, but he's one of my best friends because we officiated together. And so it's the guys, the camaraderie, the personal relationships you make, and when you go on a court together, you're a team, and that's important. You gotta really bond with those guys, and that's what I think's cool.
At what age did you become interested in sports?
Well, my family's a sports family, so as soon as I could dribble a basketball or even hold one, I think I had one in my hand, probably, early, probably 5, 6 years old, I think, when I was around 10. We didn't have organized sports back in those days till you got to like 6th grade, so, but I was interested in it as a child, really.
How tall are you?
I'm 6'4".
Is your family tall?
Yes, all my brothers are tall. My dad was about 6'5", but most all my brothers are right around 6'3", 6'4". So.
Since you played, how has the game changed?
Wow, it's changed quite a bit. I know when I played, my coach was a fundamentalist, and he taught us fundamentals of everything: dribbling, shooting, passing, defense, everything. And I think sometimes fundamentals are passed by I know there's a lot of dribble drive and a lot of up and down type play now. I think the fundamentals have been left out a little. Not that coaches are not doing their job, because they do their job. Coaches are have a good relationship with coaches, but it seems to me like simple fundamentals of the game have kind of gone by the wayside.
What advice would you give to today's youth about playing sports?
Well, I think if you're going to get into anything, basketball, football, baseball, basketball, completely dedicate yourself. Work on fundamentals. Work on your focus. Your discipline. We were taught, as my coaches always taught us, to be disciplined about everything. So if you can be focused, disciplined, and have fundamentals, I think you could really be a nice player.
What has sports done to change your life?
Well, I always go back to my high school coach, Ron Felling, and his assistants, Rick and George, Rick Curtis and George Groves, and they taught us, like I said, fundamentals and respect. And I think that carries over into my adult life. Everything that I do, my job, I'm a contractor. Details, the smallest details matter, and that was taught to me at an early age. And I carry those with me in my career and also my officiating career. I think about things. I get focused before a game. I want to give each kid out there, each team, a fair chance to win the game without any bias from me at all. I want them to be able to win the game, and fairly, So that has carried from when I was in high school to now, in everything I do, really.
What is your current occupation?
Well, I'm a contractor, painting contractor, and I've been in business for 30 years now. And like I said, attention to detail is part of my job, and so I got to give Coach Felling kudos for that.
Before I end my last couple of questions, as far as officiating and just playing the game, as far as what is your biggest role model, or who is your biggest role model?
Well, I think my older brothers were my role models as a kid. I lost my father when I was 12, and so my older brothers stepped in, and they didn't let me get out of line. They were fair with me. They watched over me. They took care of me, and so I'd have to say that they were my biggest role models. Rick, Joe, and Mike. I don't want to get misty here, but they did a lot for me. So they were big role models in my life.
Tim, is there anything else you would like to share about anything?
Well, I just think that I appreciate you coming here for this interview. I just love officiating. I know that it's consumes a lot of my time, and I wouldn't want to do anything else. But I really would hope that if any kid would get into any kind of sport, just consume yourself with it and put everything you have in it, and success will come.
Tim, thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
All right, Tyler, thanks.